Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing convenes this public hearing. Public hearing notices were given to the media on September 3rd, and then on September 5th, and today is September 10th, and the time is now 4 o'clock. Committee will hear and accept testimony for Bill 155-35. An act to establish a pilot program for youth mental health first aid training for Guam Department of Education personnel and appropriate $300,000 from the Healthy Future Funds in the fiscal year 2020 to the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center for implementation of this program and other source prevention efforts, which shall be known as the Youth Mental Health First Aid Act of 2019. I'd like to make sure that we have a very clear understanding that as the Budget Act was passed for 2020, the amount of money was already appropriated, identified to be appropriated to Guam Behavioral Health. So I think it's actually just to clarify exactly what the funds are being used for. There is no funding source to give additional funds. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that. Okay, so we're not talking about giving you additional money. There's none. Okay, I'd like to recognize that I'm joined by the author of the bill, which was Senator Regine Besco-Lee, and also co-sponsored by Senator Luis B. Muña, and I also have Senator Tello Tideway with us. The conduct of the public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of the sign-up on the sign-in sheet. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. If you need additional time, I don't think we're going to have any problem with that. Okay, written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Individuals will be allowed to present oral testimonies only once. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, as may be desired by members of the panel. Proper form and decorum will be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted, removed from the room. When you speak, I think we got a good audience here. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name for the record. We will now begin to hear testimonies, but we will first start with the author of the bill to make her opening statement. Ma'am.
Situs Masi, Mr. Chair, I want to begin by thanking you for agreeing to hear this bill. I would also like to thank my colleagues who have co-sponsored this piece of legislation to help tackle this crisis that has plagued our island for far too long. Vice Speaker Nelson, Senator Shelton, Senator Luis Muña, and you, Mr. Chair. In addition, I would like to thank the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration and our experts at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center and the Guam Department of Education, GDOE, for their continued collaboration and cooperation. Bill number 155-35 COR tasks the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, or GBWC, with establishing and administering a pilot program to offer youth mental health first aid training for up to 500 Guam Department of Education personnel directly responsible for student instruction or supervision. Several GBWC personnel are currently certified instructors whose courses will teach participants how to recognize the early signs of mental illness, safely de-escalate crisis situations, and refer affected youth to local resources. A $250 incentive is authorized to individuals who successfully complete the course. While the initial pilot program is focused on our public school students, the program can be expanded with the availability of future funds and the willingness of private schools. As proposed, the pilot program will be financed by a $300,000 appropriation from the Healthy Futures Fund, as already appropriated in the fiscal year 2020 budget, with $125,000 directed to incentives, $10,000 directed to course materials, and the remaining $165,000 to be devoted to GBWC's other suicide prevention efforts. Youth mental health first aid training is designed to teach adults how to help youth ages 12 to 18 who may be experiencing a mental health or substance abuse challenge or crisis. Participants will review typical adolescent development, discuss unique risk factors and warning signs of youth mental health problems, and come to understand the significance of early intervention. Mr. Chair, I was fortunate enough to participate in this training last year, and it certainly was an eye-opening experience for me. In 2008, the National Council for Behavioral Health brought to the United States Mental Health First Aid, a public education program designed to help individuals understand mental illness, support timely intervention, and ultimately save lives. Specifically, this is an 8-hour course that teaches people how to identify, understand, and respond to signs of mental illness and substance abuse disorders. As a means of addressing the nation's mental health crisis, NCBH's goal has been to make mental health first aid as common and readily available as CPR and traditional first aid. We all know that suicide is the 5th leading cause of death on Guam and widely recognized as a significant public health issue. Data from the Guam State Epidemiological Profile of 2016 update indicates that the suicide rate on Guam is 36.6 per 100,000 persons, markedly higher than the United States. Furthermore, suicide deaths are highest among youth and young adults, with 56% of all suicide deaths occurring in those under the age of 30. The same profile also reported data on illicit drug addiction, with about 4.5% of our high school students having tried methamphetamines, and about 11% taking a prescription drug without a doctor's prescription. Mr. Chair, today the world continues to fight in preventing more loss of life from suicide, in raising awareness of the scale of suicide around the world and the role that each of us can play to help prevent it. The world honors this fight as it commemorates World Suicide Prevention Day today, September 10th. We have witnessed scale of this crisis here at home, as too often mental health and substance abuse challenges end in tragedy for our families. Let's stop this crisis before it's too late. Our youth suicide and meth addiction rates are staggering, requiring an extraordinary intervention on our part. With the $250 incentive, we can put as many as 400 trained personnel in front of our kids in short order. Waiting for this program to spread organically means just that. We will be waiting. I know that this proposal isn't perfect. Few proposals are. And I accept that those who testify may want one element or another to change. But I think that it's vitally important to remember why we are here. Every child deserves to be safe. Safe in their schools, safe mentally and emotionally. Youth mental health first aid helps to achieve that goal. And I want to enlist as many education professionals as possible to achieve that goal. I have also learned that no one has a monopoly on good ideas. While no one wants an unfunded mandate placed on our teachers, I know that some have opposed the use of stipends to encourage teacher participation. Let me be clear. I believe that teachers are professionals and should be compensated fairly for their time. But in speaking with DOE's senior leadership, I am told that youth mental health first aid can be incorporated into at least one of the 9 professional development days that are already funded by our taxpayers. This could mean that money originally slated for stipends can be used to support expanded coverage. If the commitment to this idea is real and we can move like our kids' lives depend on it, then I support it. Because so long as Guam has one of the highest youth suicide rates in the country, none of us should sleep easily at night. I thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to the feedback from our community and our stakeholders. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Lee. I'd ask the Deputy Director, Ms. Carissa. Please come forward. We have Stephanie Lorenzo, Al Labang, come on up, and Nadine Cepeda from DOE. We'll begin with you, Ms. Caressa. All right? And then what we'll do is we'll go down to the right, and then we'll end with the youth. We do the age first. Because you're all beautiful, so I can't say age before beauty, okay? So I got to cover my tracks too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look what I have. I got the age, but I got beauty next to me. So, it'll work. All right?
Okay. All right, let me begin. Half a day, Mr. Chair and honorable senators. My name is Carissa Pangilinan, and I am here to provide my comments in my capacity as both the Deputy Director of Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center and as the coordinator of the Mental Health First Aid Training on Guam. I'd first like to say thank you, Mr. Chair, for the appropriation of the $300,000 to our department for this training program, and of course, to the good senators who voted for it. It really does mean a lot to us. I also would like to say thank you to Senator Lee, the author of this bill, who we have had many conversations about this, and because of your participation in our training last year, we do know that the buy-in was there as soon as you left. So we thank you for doing this for us. Today I would like to provide the committee with some information about the training itself. So Mental Health First Aid was designated to teach a person with zero clinical training on how to assist someone experiencing a mental health crisis that varies from anxiety, depression, substance abuse, to those with suicidal thoughts. It is an 8-hour course that shows us how to provide support to someone until we can get them the professional help that they need. It is not meant to create clinicians and experts. It is designed for the layman. It is overseen by the National Council for Behavioral Health, and they started a movement that first set out to reach 1 million people across the nation, but have since trained over 1.5 million and have over 15,000 certified instructors across the nation, which includes our island. Their goal is to make mental health first aid as common as CPR and first aid. In 2016, while I was the project director for a SAMHSA grant in our same agency, I sent a team of 6 employees to be certified in the youth mental health first aid curriculum and 5 others to be certified in the adult mental health first aid curriculum. In addition, I used that federal grant money to pay for training equipment such as laptops and projectors, training supplies, and the required training manuals. We invested over 100,000 of those federal dollars in this program. In November of 2016, we conducted our first training, and since then, we have trained over 550 people on Guam from various organizations, agencies, and families. We have yet to be challenged with the lack of desire from our community to learn how to recognize signs and symptoms, because as you know, our community is comprised of so many people who care about our youth. The only setback that we've experienced is a lack of funding for the training manuals and supplies after the federal grant ended. It is for this reason that we are so grateful to this legislative body for recognizing our mental health as something that is so important to the overall health of our community. So here is our reality. Over the 3-year span from 2016 to 2018, Guam lost 130 people to suicide, and hundreds more attempted. It is our goal at GBHWC to one day reach zero suicide. One of the main strategies of our agency is to increase the awareness of the signs and symptoms, and of course the awareness of where to go for help. Okay? In the spirit of the bill, I am happy to report that GBHWC and GDOE continue to strengthen and maintain our partnership, and in addition to the certified GBH trainers, 4 GDOE personnel have just returned last week from their certification training. So we now have a total of over 14 people. Part of the plan moving forward is for GBHWC and GDOE personnel to co-train our target audiences. I have next to me Nadine Cepeda, the Department of Education's school district psychologist and clinical director for the school-based behavioral health. We have collaborated on this effort for a few years, and in the excitement of the upcoming fiscal year, we have begun identifying priority areas for this appropriation, beginning with the plan to have the National Council of Behavioral Health conduct training of trainers on site here in Guam for both the youth and adult curricula, which is estimated to cost around $52,000, but will be able to certify up to 32 people to add to our cadre. Other costs associated with providing these mental health first aid trainings include manuals for each participant, as well as the training supplies and certificates, so this appropriation will be put to good use. Our two agencies have identified the school administrators as its first cohort of trainees as the leadership of the schools, and we just certified 29 principals during their annual School Leadership Academy 2 months ago. This is all in addition to the over 100 GDOE personnel that we have trained in the last year and a half. The next cluster of GDOE personnel includes teachers, which we have agreed can take place during their professional development days. During the school breaks, when students are not on campus, we plan to conduct trainings for 12-month school personnel, which include office staff, clerks, and school aides. Having a bigger cadre of over 30 trainers will not only help us infuse mental health first aid in our schools, but across the rest of the island, and will further assist in maintaining current certifications because they do expire every 3 years. In addition to the GDOE personnel, there are a number of target audiences that we need to train, including the organizations and agencies that service our youth, such as DYA, Sanctuary, other nonprofit organizations, as well as our first responders and public safety officers. We plan to equip our community with the tools to assist both youth and adults, and therefore would like our trainers to be certified in both curricula. In addition to mental health first aid, GBHWC offers an array of trainings that are part of our suicide prevention strategies, including a more intense 16-hour evidence-based curriculum called ASSIST, which stands for Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training, and teaches how to intervene with someone who is suicidal, including how to safely talk them down. So, Mr. Chair, if I could ask for something today, it would be to kindly amend Public Law 3536, our budget bill under the Appropriation for Youth Mental Health First Aid, to include other mental health and suicide prevention strategies such as ASSIST. We are so grateful again for all your support. We are certainly limited in what we can do without sufficient funds, but we feel so hopeful because our legislature recognizes that the mental well-being of our people affects the overall health of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadine?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and to the honorable senators. My name is Nadine Cepeda. I'm one of the district school psychologists, but I'm also the clinical director of school-based behavioral health. Most people don't even know that exists. My background has been at mental health, both with the children's division as well as the adult division, so I bring back over 20 years, and I'm in private practice. I say this because we work very closely with mental health in partnership and in collaboration. Truly, you have prioritized. Mental health has always been not a priority. Truly, as you see this shooting, it is alarming. That's one. With mental first aid, it's recognizing across the board. I am a practitioner. I am not asking people in our community practitioners. What we're asking is to identify, recognize these early signs so they can give the help and make that referral to the appropriate services. That's one. There's only 4 district school psychologists, and we're serving over 30,000 students. It's alarming. I first came into DOE 3.5 years ago. Every month we were doing a debriefing due to suicide. What is going on with our community? Mental health also looks at, the mental health first aid looks at substance abuse. I came up with, and I say me because we have to be creative. I'm using an evidence-based practice curriculum that we're infusing in our schools because we know there's a need. We do a 16 session for substance abuse for middle and high school. We need to heal. And you investing this money tells us that our kids and our future of this community matters. And people need to know that. What are we waiting? I hope we never, ever have to see a mass shooting. And that's what we need to do, is to prevent it. And by doing this and investing, Chair, which you solely did, is that you're putting our kids as a priority in our community. Without a healthy mind, body, and spirit, they cannot perform. Everything becomes secondary. I get it. Truly, I'm from the Department of Education. It's about academics, but it's also coming into school with a healthy mind, body, and spirit. So I come to you, again, we ask you, in every way possible, the mental health first aid has been a great investment, truly, because it lets laymen, as you know, Senator Regine, been pushing this at all levels. And I don't think it only should stop at teachers. It needs to start at clerks, because when I assess the students, they say they get yelled at by the clerks. We should not be treating our kids that way. It's a learned behavior. So it starts from all levels. School aides who are critical. That's why we have PBIS, which is probably positive behavioral interventions. It's the teachers who direct contact who have, and by the way, school aides and clerks are so impactful. If a kid cannot trust anybody at home and they're heard by someone who cares, that's all that matters. That can save a life. That can even save someone from going down the barrel of trying to use methamphetamine. I'm in the community. I'm doing assessments and responding to DOE. There's not enough practitioners. So again, this is a broken record, but I thank you, Chair. I thank you, senators, for believing and putting this kind of money. I'm passionate in this because I believe in what it will do. So thank you, thank you, thank you, because you need to invest more. We need our kids to be healthy because it also helps their family become healthy. And it starts from each and every one of you when you invest in this kind of money to our kids, who eventually will be our leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Buenas and Hafaday, Chairman San Agustin, and members of the 35th Guam Legislature. My name is Stephanie Lorenzo, and I'm testifying in my capacity as the Legislative Secretary of Guam Youth Congress, the Committee on Health, Human Services, and Gender Affairs. But most importantly, I'm here to testify as a big sister in favor of Guam Legislature Bill 15535. I commend Senator Lee for introducing this measure, as we have a similar piece of legislation that was passed in our 31st Guam Youth Congress that was introduced by now Speaker Christian Valencia. When the Guam Youth Congress introduced our equivalent of the bill, I was compelled to get Youth First Aid Mental Health Certified, which, by the way, Ms. Carissa was my trainer, which is lovely seeing her here today, because it is important that our youth have agents in place to know the signs of them asking for help, even if it's in their own distinct way. As a big sister, having that training gave me an inside perspective of how much pressure our youth is under today. Rates of suicide are flying through the roof, social media is blowing up everything. Depression and anxiety are the new stomachache and fever. Just this past summer, I attended a funeral for a 13-year-old girl who completed suicide by a gunshot to the head, and to know that there are others like her who are asking for help in their own distinct way. I want to thank you, Senator Lee, and her co-sponsors for introducing this bill. You're safeguarding our children and for taking the initiative to ensure that they will have people in their schools who care for all aspects of their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Ow. You're the man of the hour.
Buenas and Hafaday, Senator San Agustin, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill 155-32 COR. I am Alda Bang, Majority Leader of the 32nd Guam Youth Congress. I am here today to provide my strong support for Bill 155-32 COR, which would establish and administer a pilot program by Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center to offer youth mental health first aid training for the Guam Department of Education personnel, directly working responsible for student instructions or supervision. This bill reminds me of my psychology class at the University of Guam, where I learned about mental health problems can be obtained genetically, biologically, due to a trauma, or through a stressor. An important point I learned from my professor is that youth are prone to stress and depression. Some of the reasons include stress from schoolwork, peer pressure, and bullying. Additionally, statistics support the premise that youth are prone to depression. According to the State of Mental Health 2018 report by Mental Health America, the severe youth depression rate have increased from 5.9% in 2012 to 8.2% in 2017. From the same report, 1.7 million youth with major depressive episode does not receive treatment. Additionally, I learned from my psychology class that mental health problems left untreated would lead to its severity. With Bill 155-32 COR, it will provide training for the Guam Department of Education personnel that work directly with students. It will allow them to recognize the signs of depression and other mental health problems, and be allowed to refer students to the right people that could help them. Early detection is a key to treat people suffering from depression and other mental health problems. And Bill 155-32 will be the avenue to give training to detect the signs of depression and mental health problems. Moreover, I am here on behalf of the 32nd Guam Youth Congress to express our support as a body to Bill 155-32 COR. Last June 2019, the Guam Youth Congress passed Resolution 22-32, which calls for the support of the 32nd Guam Youth Congress to Bill 155-32 COR. We also express sincere commendation to the sponsors of the bill for their efforts and commitments for the youth of Guam. In closing, on behalf of the 32nd Guam Youth Congress and the youth of Guam, I would like to commend Senator Eugene Bisco-Lee, Senator Luis Borja-Muñoz, Vice Speaker Tina Nelson, Senator Amanda Shelton, and Senator Joseph Augustine for sponsoring this bill and for your continued support for the youth. I also urge all senators to do their duty by voting in favor of this bill that will benefit the future of our island, which are the youth. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill 155-32 COR. And I believe Legislative Secretary Lorenzo has a copy of the resolution that we passed in support of this bill.
Yes, so if we're just able to attach it, I guess, for the committee report, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Louise, do you have any questions, ma'am?
I do have one question for Nadine, but before I get to that, I just wanted to say that I believe in divine intervention, and the reason why I believe in that is because there are so many steps that led me up to even sitting here today. Last year, I had a check presentation with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and had an opportunity to talk to Sally McDonald from UOG that mentioned to me on a side note that the suicide rates at UOG were rising. And so it kind of allowed me to start digging a little bit deeper into some of the research and found out that our suicide rates were going up. And what were we doing or not doing? And so I started to get a little bit more involved, and then about a couple weeks later, I had a dinner meeting with a good friend of mine from the National Weather Service who said he just had a couple of incidences, even not being trained, had to assist two people who were on the verge of suicide in different occasions. And so I thought, wow, this is kind of strange. I was just talking to Sally McDonald about suicides. And so I had a meeting with UOG and all the stakeholders there with Mr. Eitlet. And I was encouraged to join Safe Start, to at least take the initial program to identify suicide. And even at that point, just saying the word suicide felt very taboo to me. Like I just felt like I couldn't say it comfortably. So I'm glad I was able to take the Safe Start, but I do know that there was a little, it was difficult to get into that program. And I said, well, I'm here. I want to help. Why are you denying me? And it wasn't that they were denying, they just didn't have enough packets because we just didn't have enough money for the packets. Eventually, I was able to get in. And then had another meeting with Nadine, all the other stakeholders at DOE and UOG, even Dr. David, and Guam Behavioral Health. And it turned out a really nice, big roundtable meeting. And then after that, then I get Senator Lee asking me if I wanted to co-sponsor this bill. And that encouraged me to go further and become assist trained, right? So now I'm an assist trained. And from there, Landon and I have put some other plans into place, and hopefully maybe we can incorporate them into some of the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness programs. And we were encouraged now to become trainers to train, right? So this is the next step in my course, my divine intervention, right? So I'm glad I'm sitting here because now this is going to push me in a further direction to be able to train the trainers. And I think what I would like to see is not just in DOE, but I think even outside into the community, into their homes, into the community centers with the mayors, you know, because that's really where it happens. And so one of my questions for Nadine is, has there been any suicides or even I can't say attempt, right? But suicides in the actual school system, in schools, has there ever been any recorded?
So, no, they haven't. Oftentimes, it's reported through the rosaries. I have a good working relationship with Guam Behavioral Health, and it's through just discussion. Then they either are told to Peace or someone from Guam Behavioral Health. They connect with me, and then we follow up and do, it's called an incident debriefing, to provide and discuss what that is for people who knew that deceased. And we're not like honoring because of the suicide, but we want them to know it's okay to talk about it. You have these feelings, and what can we do to help you? And when you should be concerned, when you really need more help. And so I do know last school year, I had to respond to a charter school, and an 8-year-old was actually, they caught her hanging in the bathroom. That's the only incident that I actually was called in to respond quite swiftly, and they took her and rushed her to the GMH. 8 years old. Just reminding you that it's quite young. Their brain is still developing. Don't understand the permanency of that. If she was to complete the act, what would happen? And so we responded, and we again helped the school for charters. When we're called, we respond. The great thing is, if we don't have enough, which before I came in, they didn't have any standardization, I now have incident debriefing, and we work very closely with Guam Behavioral Health. If we need that collaboration, they help us and we help them. And we've responded to even the loss at St. John's. So we work very closely when private school requests for that type of service or the community.
So we're not limiting it to high school or even middle school. We're even going all the way down as far as elementary school.
So we are, yes.
Okay.
If we need that, and we say incident debriefing, that's for any type of incident, because in your brain that can be looked at as trauma, and the symptoms may have anxiety at a younger age, and people don't know what to look for. So those are the type of things we offer to the school district.
How difficult is it to make, coming from the school system, to make the parents aware that there's something happening with their child? I mean, I just wondered what the communication is like.
I think it could be a struggle. We've put in protocols. I've done a lot of training on the counselors, so they've been having a lot more responsibility. They have their master's in counseling. They now do suicide risk assessments. They used to never do that. And I was told by my counterparts at Guam Behavioral Health from the psychiatrist that it is decreased in regards to them coming in for whatever reason. So we are putting things in place. We need the community to help us. They are our kids, not just DOE. And so the way we look at it is we also provide training for administrators, teachers when it's called upon, so it's at all levels.
Okay. So when I took the Safe Start program, it was done at behavioral health, and majority of the participants was social work students. And then when I took the Assist program, majority of the participants was, they were nursing students. And I just felt like we were preaching to the choir. And although I'm not saying that we shouldn't empower the people who come across the students and the people who probably have these issues, but I think we should reach a little bit further. And so that would be my dream, is to get it out further away from, not just the school system, but into the homes. And I think that's very important.
If I may, Senator, we actually, I'm going to say this, we work very closely with the Assist. They use our venue. In our main office, we have so many conference rooms. They make it a public announcement. Because our conference room is big enough, we use DOE. So this is how important in our collaboration. We provide the space, and it is opened up for Assist, as well as other trainings for community members to come in. And we help spread that news because that's what we can do. Now, we need people in the community to say, this is what I want. I really want to help our community. So I just have to kind of mention that it's truly a lot of work and a lot of layers at a different, in regards to how we help our community.
And finally, I just want to say that I did have a positive meeting with the director for Guam Behavioral Health, and her dream is to get 170,000 trained. And so that would be amazing, and however way we can help, I'm sure we're all here for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Tello.
Situs Masi, thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity. First, I'd like to say, Ms. Pangilinan and Ms. Cepeda, thank you so much for what you're doing. The job that you do is very, very difficult. And it's important that you yourself are given the help needed to get through this. And this is something that I've always brought up to behavioral and wellness, and in the past when we've talked about counselors, social workers, the importance for them to also get the support you need, because you need to, once you go through something so traumatic as suicide, and visit the parents, that you walk away with your heart just falling down to the ground, and you need somebody there to pick it back up for you. So I'm asking you, Mrs. Pangilinan, as the Deputy at Behavior and Wellness, that you have the support group for counselors such as Ms. Cepeda and as well as yourself. But you two are really the true heroes here today, and I want to thank you so much for what you're doing. And I'll do everything I can to help support that. I think everyone here, I mean, at least a handful of us here knows somebody who has committed suicide. I bet you 100% would know, even if they didn't commit suicide, attempted to commit suicide. And that's alarming, especially knowing that, 36.6 suicides for every 100,000 people on Guam. While in the States, the same numbers at every 100,000 people, it's only 13.5. That is so alarming. So because of that, and knowing the statistics, especially for you, Ms. Pangilinan, so can you tell me, in the absence of federal grants, what other resources are available locally to help parents, families, teachers, school staff identify and assist those experiencing suicidal thoughts and other serious mental health issues?
Well, one of the local appropriations that have been given to us, at least the last 3 years that I can remember, is the Focus on Life money. That does come from the general fund, but it's only $86,000. But our prevention and training branch does a great job at maximizing the use of that. And we have heard comments from partners in the community that have said they remember our peace branch, which is the prevention and training branch, that they used to be so loud in our community, and now they barely hear them. And the real reason for that is because the federal dollars have gone away. And so, as aggressive as we are in applying, and we do get grants, they are, how they are very strict in how the money can be spent. So now with this appropriation, for sure, is unprecedented, I think, when it comes specifically for the training, local dollars for the training.
So from only 86,000 for something that is
Has
almost
been-
considered an epidemic?
Right, and most of that 86,000, from my understanding, was used to fund the crisis line.
Oh.
And we were paying Sanctuary Incorporated to run that for us. So you could imagine that more than half of that was already
Gone.
spoken for.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm glad this money is going to help the agency. Ms. Cepeda, you mentioned earlier that you were hoping that in the section of the bill that talks about the trainers and how you were hoping it would be broadened based not just for teachers or those individuals that deal with one-on-one students, but the majority of the time you find these students in the hallways, and those okay, I'm revealing my age, okay, parapros. What is that? You guys have no idea what a parapro is, do you? Only Joe and I know, what a parapro is. And they walk the halls. They see, especially if the child goes to make an excuse, and that's usually when it begins. They get out of class, they go make an excuse to the bathroom. And these parapros are seeing these students. And they pretty much have the heartbeat of these kids. They're very important. So if there's anything in this, ask the good chairman that there's an amendment to be made that it's not just for teachers, but I think the parapros are pretty much the lifeline there. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from teachers. But you hit it right on the nose, Ms. Cepeda. I appreciate you recognizing that as well. So what other examples of a broader community-wide issue that can be attributed to suicide, such as tobacco, alcohol, illegal drugs, things like that?
So, Senator, as a practitioner, it varies. Mental health is a huge, a lot to look at. So it could even be stressors. One of the things that we have to do is build coping skills for our youth. Oftentimes, they don't know how to cope. And parents need to know they can't shield their kids from disappointment. They need to know that that's part of life. It's what do you do with that disappointment? What do you do when you're skipping? It's how do you change that around? And it's the approach. When we talk about trauma, people have been traumatized. You can witness it and your brain takes it in, and then you start to say, wait a minute. So when you look at mental health, it's genetic and it's environmental factors. And if they can't cope, this is what happens with suicide. They go to substance. They go to other things that they shouldn't be. We need to provide that support. And I have to say, when I came to DOE, coming from mental health, the vision from Mr. John Fernandez and my administrator, Mr. Anderson, gave me an opportunity because I was always trying to push school-based behavioral health, and so has Carissa. When you're in the mental health, we have access. They can't even make it to mental health when I was at mental health because transportation. We're at the schools. We're doing therapy sessions at the school site and we pull them out. It's even changing educators and their mindset, because initially they would say, why are you pulling them out of class? First of all, you think they're coming to class? Look at the grades. They're not even there. We need to get them healthy. And you said it best, those one-to-one aides or those school aides are so powerful. When I talk to the students, that interaction, those are the ones that know their kids most. And so, as you said, it could vary. It's stress, it's family problems as they come into the school. And so it could be a lot of things. And I can't say specifics, but it goes back to stress and not having that coping skills. And that's why I'm grateful to have the school-based behavioral, because it's really an in-house clinic, really trying to address, and that is the purpose of why school mental health or behavioral health in the United States is huge, because of access to care.
Ms. Cepeda, how many, yeah, it is on. Ms. Cepeda, how many Ms. Cepedas are there in DOE?
So currently, there are 3 other psychologists. I have 3 clinical interns. They're master's level school counselors. I take them 80% of the time, and we provide services. There are a total of 7. They're working under my license, and we support them. And so the goal is to increase that so then we can provide district-wide level. And truly, that's something I vision is we can really tap on with the psychiatrists, have them come out to our schools, because truly, it will be very difficult for them to go in. And this is why it's key that we have this really collaboration and relationship with Guam Behavioral Health.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cepeda, and that's good to know. There's more out there. I was thinking you're the only one there, but still, it's not enough. You know, with 30,000 students to be taking care of 7 really is not that much at all. I'd also hope that the chairman would consider that to incorporate and not forget the charter schools. Like you mentioned, the one example that you gave was at a charter school. The one example you gave. So it should not just be Guam Department of Education, but it's also incorporate, Mr. Chair, or in the charter schools as well, and I hope he does make that amendment to that. And the last thing I have, the last question, I'm sorry, I know I could be long-winded, is Mrs. Pangilinan, how are you going to spend the $300,000?
So Nadine and I have started to identify the priority audiences, right, within the DOE School First, and then we have broken it down to the other youth-serving agencies and organizations, right? But the very first step, as I mentioned in my testimony earlier, would be to bring out the National Council of Behavioral Health trainers to come and do their TOT training, which will then turn around and certify another 32 trainers. So on top of the 14 or whatever we have now, right, about 14 plus the 32, that would be a lot quicker to infuse across the island for sure. So we've been working for the past year and a half with only 6 of us who were certified to train. And we did 550. Imagine what we can do with over 30. So the first thing with the appropriation would be to just get more trainers. And then working along the lines of the priorities that Nadine and I have started to identify, of course, the trainers would then plug in calendars, and what we do even at Guam Behavioral Health now is when we do plug in trainings, if it's not specific to a certain organization that has reached out to us or who we've reached out to, we just put it out in the media. We ask KOAM and all the other media to put it out there, and then we just get inundated with phone calls. So like I mentioned earlier, we don't have an issue with getting people to want to come and be trained. It's buying the manuals that's a problem. And we can't conduct the training without the manuals.
Okay, thank you so much. I was wondering about that because so it sounds like the bulk of it is getting these trainers out. The bulk of the money is going to be used for that. And then of course literature, which, you know, it costs money to print booklets, et cetera, down the line. So it does have here in the legislation that a report shall be submitted after expenditures and stuff. So hopefully keep those in good shape and good order and continue to ask the legislature for money, because I tell you, the first thing I liked about you is how you asked for more money. And that's the way to go. You got to ask for it, regardless. Okay, well, thank you again so much for all your testimony and being the heroes of Guam. Thank you. And thank you, too, as well, for your testimony.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Lee. No, I'll close it after you're done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I also want to take the opportunity to thank you, Mr. Majority Leader, Ala Bang, for joining us, and our Legislative Secretary from the Guam Youth Congress for your support of this bill, for the resolution that you passed. for really helping to champion these efforts and get your constituents involved and let them know all of the great work that Guam Behavioral Health and other partners in our community are doing, to just really step it up and make sure that we are committed to awareness and committed to training and understanding some of these a little bit better so that we can tackle a lot of these challenges that our community is facing. So I really want to thank you both for your leadership, everybody at the Guam Youth Congress. To Carissa and the GIPWIC team, we a few days ago, we were with the governor and the lieutenant governor signing a proclamation for September as National Suicide Prevention Month. And so it really is timely that we're discussing this now. I really want to thank you just for all the work that you do day in and day out, for really dedicating yourself, dedicating your life to making sure that we are healed and whole. I also want to give a shout out to all of your partners that you work with. You mentioned some of them, all the people who support your efforts. I think that's really important. During the proclamation signing, they kept mentioning, with help, there's hope. And it was very powerful for me to see all the people in the room. It was jam-packed in that room. Just a ton of people ready and willing to help. And that was, for me, very hopeful. And I took a lot of inspiration from that. So I really thank you. And I thank you for your comments. And I look forward to working with you to make some of the adjustments to the bill before we bring it to the floor. And Ms. Nadine and GDOE, I really want to thank you for being on the front lines. You were mentioning earlier in your testimony that with this training, we can save lives. And that's really the bottom line here. We really want to be able to address this right at the forefront and get our kids the help that they so desperately need. You also mentioned that this is a good investment in our future. And we know that hurt people. And so we want to help get them the help that they need. We can help fix some of the hurt. We can't take it away completely, but we want to make sure that we address that. And as a child of a social worker, I totally know and understand a lot of the work that you both do. And I think one of my colleagues was mentioning it before. It's also really important that you have that self-care and you're able to work through some of the challenges that you can take on in these very difficult roles. So again, I really thank you. You also mentioned debriefs. And I think it's really critical that you go out into the schools and that you do that, because we all know that survivors and their families and their friends are more at risk of these types of behaviors. And so just addressing that and making sure that they know that they have places to go and people to talk to about what they've experienced is so critical. You were talking about genetic and environmental factors, and just the fact that our kids need much more support than they're getting now. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to shout out to the youth mental health trainers. We have one in the back with joining us today, but also all the people who have participated in this program and are now really equipped with this knowledge and are able to kind of spread the good gospel about, what we need to look for. And the same thing with Safe Talk and Assist, and I thank my co-sponsor, Senator Muñoz, for also taking up the mantle with me, because we know that we cannot do these things alone. So with that, Mr. Chair, I look forward to working with the committee to make some changes to the bill. And I just really want to thank you all for taking the time to come out and testify today. I think it's really important that we hear from our community. But I also would be remiss if I didn't thank my co-sponsors. I really want to thank Vice Speaker Nelson, Senator Amanda Shelton, who is off island, and Senator Luis Muñoz, and of course our chair, Senator San Agustin, for helping us to marshal those resources and get those dollars into the hands of the people in our community who are affecting this change. And so I really want to thank you so much for all of your work, and I really look forward to moving this bill to the floor with the chairman's help and my co-sponsors, and hopefully being able to celebrate with a new public law. Sizus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Yes, we will make the amendments. We'll move it to the floor. We still got some time. We've got more than enough time. But I'd like to also thank you, Carissa, Nadine, and for the youth. Yes, please.
I'm so sorry I got carried away, Mr. Chair. Two just quick things that I wanted to note. In the bill, page 5, line 2 and 3, it does note that participation shall be limited to GDOE personnel directly responsible for student instruction, that's teachers, but also folks that are responsible for supervision at each school. So those are, some of our one-to-one aides, and hopefully our support staff can be covered in this language. If there's additional language from DOE, if you could submit that, that would be really helpful to us. Ms. Nadine, I just wanted to ask a quick question. In terms of, maybe either of you could answer this, but there was, as part of your testimony, is there a commitment from DOE to include youth mental health first aid in your professional development days?
Yes, we actually have talked with the superintendent and deputy, and they've actually, because of, we want to make sure the teachers are in there, we already have a plan, and that's to start with administrators, because they have to buy in, right? They're the leads in the schools. Then we would take a PD, which already the school counselors are certified as mental health first aid in the youth curriculum. And so we are infusing that. Even our SSD staff who go out and do that have been already trained and certified. So we have a list of things how we're going to approach it, because approaching 4,000 employees is quite a lot. Right. But we know that it's instrumental to make change occur. And so it's just, we have to strategize it accordingly, and we have looked at that we're going to take a PD day. Unfortunately, we have to do 30 people for 2 trainers. And the commitment is we use federal money to actually send 4 of us. We just returned, and I'm one of them. And so that's part of building this capacity, because we know we're going to need the help. Even with 14, can you imagine 30 and how many? But as long as we move along, we're getting it done, and that is the goal, Senator.
Right. And I think it's important to note that this training only lasts for 3 years, and then you'd have to re-up. I also, Ms. Pangilinan, you mentioned the training of the trainers. It's going to run us about $52,000. Is that correct?
It cost about $26,000 to bring it covers trainer fees, their airfare, their per diem, from the National Council. It's actually an amount set by them. And so they can train, it'll be a 3-day really intense training, and by the end of the 3rd day, we would have 16 certified. And so, the hope is that we can have 2 of those and make it 32 on top of the 14 that we already have. And it would cost $52,000. Of course, we'll use GDOE's venue and find other things to maybe feed the participants or whatnot, because it is an 8-hour training for 3 days.
So with Ms. Nadine committing from GDOE that they would include youth mental health first aid in your personal or professional development days, how many more teachers and support staff do you think could be reached with this program if we made it part of professional development as opposed to adding an incentive?
Eventually, we will train all teachers, because every teacher is required to be at their professional development day. So it might not be all teachers by the end of the FY, but with the 30-plus trainers and the professional development days that are set prior to the start of the school year, we can certainly add that in. And Superintendent Fernandez has given us his commitment. I think I see him once or twice a week. So, we talk about this and other efforts a lot. And he's given us his commitment to making this happen.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chair. Let's get to work.
Yes, thank you. Going back to you folks here, when you identified that in the past it was like 86,000, well, you just put yourself on my radar now with my staff that we'll be watching out, because it's about our children. And if I don't understand why only 86,000, you've got to start. My radar's always been with GPD, GMH, and everybody else. But I think that once we start to change the bad habits or the way that our children's going, we won't have to worry about too many arrests. We won't have to worry about too many of our students or our young adults going to GMH or anywhere where they're going to need help, because they're going to be intercepted before then. And that's what I'm going to be looking at. Is looking at how much impact you folks are able to do. And I know there's going to be an impact. and you're looking at, what, 32? I expect that to grow. I expect that actually, as we move along, that like the other senators have brought up, reach out also to not only charter schools, but also to private schools, and hit all the areas. Because when you cover everybody, then it's kind of like, you're going to have a few that's going to, we're going to miss, but you're not going to have a group that you're going to miss. Only one or two, and that they can get caught up real quick. And that's what I'm looking forward to. But we will be getting together to do the amendments. We'll get with you folks and Senator Lee, and we'll make the amendments so this will be ready for our next session. And there being no one else yet to testify, the committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. San Augustine at gmail.com. Jesus Masi for your attendance and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. This public hearing for Bill 155-35 is now adjourned. It is now 5 o'clock. Thank you.